Today we're talking about a Catholic priest, 200 kids, and wrestling. But before you get your panties all in a bunch, all uptight and anal and whatnot, this isn't one of those stories. In the world of professional wrestling, heroes often wear masks, revealing their true selves to only those closest to them. But what if I were to tell you there was a hero whose mask not only hid a wrestler, but a man of faith? A priest not only known for his prowess in the ring, but also for his love of children. A legend of many luchadors and a beacon of hope for the children of Mexico, this masked marvel blended two very different worlds: the vibrant, high-flying world of luchadors and the solemn, compassionate path of a priest. Welcome to the chat, Fray Tormenta, aka the real Nacho Libre. And now that I've got the intro out of the way, I gotta get that mask off. I don't even know if you guys could hear me during that first part.
Yoo-hoo! I'll make you famous.
Let me preface this. I was sick for like 2 weeks, so my voice isn't quite there. But I'm here for you beautiful bastards, alright? So let's get this going. Sergio Gutierrez Benitez was born to Jesus Gutierrez Garcia and Emily Benitez on February 5th, 1945 in San Agustin, in Mesothelioma, Hidalgo, Mexico.
Attention! If you or a loved one was diagnosed with mesothelioma, you may be entitled to financial compensation.
Being the 16th of 17 children, life for the family was a struggle from the very start. When Sergio was a little boy, his family ran into trouble when two of his uncles were murdered in a feud. So, with little choice, the family packed up and fled to Mexico City, landing in Tres Estrellas, a rough neighborhood north of the city. By the time Sergio was 9 years old, he knew how to fight and drink because he had joined a gang and started doing drugs. By the age of 11, his life was consumed with addiction and drugs. And I don't mean him and his buddies like to sneak a joint by the soccer bleachers. No, our saint was a little bit of a sinner snorting that Peruvian marching powder. You know, that Colombian Bam Bam. As his habit became an addiction, Sergio had to find a way to pay the piper. Turning to petty crime to support his addiction, his life was in a spiral heading nowhere fast. He once said by the end of his youth, he collected more than 70 scars. He had been shot, he had been stabbed, and he had a droopy eye from the time a drunk man hit him in the head with a bottle. As Sergio walked his path of darkness, he soon found the light in an unexpected way. When he was about 20 years old, one of his friends and fellow gang members were murdered, and Sergio was a prime suspect for the homicide. But there was just one problem with this. He couldn't have been the killer of his friend. He was in his local cantina getting plastered all night. But being that Mexico isn't America, where police actually bother to investigate a crime, the Mexican policia couldn't be bothered doing their own job. So it was up to Sergio to clear his own name and prove his innocence. He would have to go back to the bar and find other drunks that can remember him, let alone be able to talk to the police on his behalf. Yet, luckily for Sergio and the children in Mexico, he was able to find someone that could verify his whereabouts. After clearing his name of the murder, Sergio found himself on the steps of his local church. Feeling the jagged edges of rock bottom, Sergio decided to step into the church to find redemption. However, he was quickly turned away by this priest. Luckily for Sergio though, getting pushed out of the church didn't sway his choice to get sober. After being turned away by the priest, Sergio went to Tlalpan, an area of Mexico City far from his borough in Tres Estrellas. As soon as he reached Tlalpan, he checked himself into a rehab, and once in the rehab, he was strapped to a bed and injected with some kind of mystery serum. As the plunger pushed the mystery mix into Sergio's arm, they told him, here, you don't get cured, you get detoxed. You're going to have to cure yourself. Which to me, that's a terrifying way of telling someone they're about to go through hell, and guess what? You're going through it alone. I don't know about you, but this rehab seems like nightmare fuel. Let's go over this. He's strapped to a bed, they're injecting him with night-night juice, all while for all we know, the midget Nazi from Rob Zombie's movie 31 is in the corner saying shit like, buckle up, pendejo, you're gonna go on a bumpy ride.
Happy Halloween, motherfuckers!
This is nightmare fever fuel dream. And poor Sergio had to go through it for real. He spent nearly a week alone in one small room strapped to this bed. His screams from his hallucinations left a permanent scratch in his voice from this experience. He hallucinated that the light hanging above his bed would swallow him whole. What did they do to this poor man? What the hell did they dose him with? Upon his release from rehab, Sergio entered a seminary school in Toluca, the capital city of Mexico. However, old habits die hard, and you can't break a wild horse in a day. Within a week of joining this seminary school, he was kicked out for punching a fellow student. However, just like every other main character in life, when Sergio stumbled, he got back up. He enrolled in a different seminary school, and this time it stuck. His schooling sent him to study in Barcelona, then Navarra, and then to Rome itself. Sergio saw a completely different side of the world than the one he had been used to. He had studied religion, philosophy, medicine, and the psychology of the juvenile delinquency. He came back to Mexico a very different man than the broken one that had left. For now, I'm going to call him Father Sergio. When Father Sergio returned home to Mexico, he came back with a calling. He knew he had to help people in need, so he began counseling for those who battling drugs and addiction. After all, who better to guide someone through the hell than someone who'd already walked on the coals? However, Father Sergio wanted to start at the roots of society's problems, so he turned to a kind of a catch-em-young approach. And in 1976, Father Sergio opened up his new orphanage in the town of Texcoco, Mexico. I'm not even going to try to pronounce the Spanish name of this orphanage, so I'll just give you with the translation. The translation is Home of Fray Tormento's Cubs. This orphanage became home to around 270 orphans. Yet the world doesn't run on sunshine and smiles.
I hate all the orphans in the whole world.
Father Sergio had to find a way to feed 270 children, let alone clothe them and educate them too. Feeling like he had bit off more than he could chew, Father Sergio got a bit anxious about his financial situation. Yet that's when he remembered a movie he had watched as a child, El Señor Tormento, a movie about a priest who funds an orphanage by wrestling. Determined to turn this film into a reality, Father Sergio embarked on a secret double life, a lover, a fighter, a saint, a sinner, Father Sergio, and Fray Tormento. Sorry, had to. Father Sergio would begin training at 4 a.m. and would continue till just before 7 a.m. morning mass. As new bruises were hidden from the children, there were times when Father Sergio was in so much pain from training, he could barely sit in his confessional booth. Yet a year after daily training and preparation, Father Sergio felt he was ready to make his mass debut as Fray Tormento. I'm going to keep doing that. Donning his mask, he stepped into the ring for the first time and lost. However, his first match earned the orphanage a whopping $15. Now, $15 doesn't sound like fair compensation to receive for a weekly ass whooping, but for Father Sergio, it wasn't disheartening at all.
There it is! It's beautiful! Take your hat off, boy, that's a dollar bill!
He was closer to his goal of keeping the orphanage alive. From that moment, all he had his sights set was the millions like Muhammad Ali. Fray Tormento knew that if the Diocese of Texcoco knew his secret, then they would stop all of his hard work. So to Father Sergio, his mask and his identity were vital to him. However, what's done in the dark will be brought to the light. Father Sergio's identity was revealed by accident by fellow luchador Hurricane Ramirez. When Ramirez called Tormento to ask if they'd be wrestling the next weekend, Father Sergio let it slip that he had a wedding to officiate. So Hurricane Ramirez invited himself to the wedding, and what was an innocent invitation caused Father Sergio's anonymity to come crashing down. Within a week, Fray Tormento's cover had been blown, finally being recognized as Father Sergio. Yet his greatest fear became the best thing to happen in his career. When the fans found out about his story, he became an instant celebrity traveling around Mexico and internationally, performing high-flying maneuvers. When the identity of Fray Tormento was doxed, the Bishop of Texcoco was less than thrilled about a priest going around Mexico with a finishing move known as the confessional, let alone it was one of his own priests. So, feeling like it was somewhat blasphemous and unbecoming of a man of the cloth, he demanded that Father Sergio drop this whole luchador thing. Yet, Fray Tormento's arguments fell on deaf ears until he decided to put some of the showmanship he had learned in the ring to good use. He decided, stretch the truth. He told the bishop he would retire from Lucha Libre if the diocese would give the orphanage the same amount of money Fray Tormento was earning in the ring. The bishop was under the impression, though, that Father Sergio was rolling in the pesos, so he conceded and gave up. For nearly 25 years, Fray Tormento traveled the Lucha Libre circuit of Mexico, appearing for mostly regional and local promotions, although he was a regular appearing mask for both the CMLL and the UWA, the Mexican equivalent of the WCW and WWF. A career that was only supposed to last a year, survived 23 years, providing to over 2,000 kids. His retirement came in the year 2000 when he finally agreed to stop wrestling as long as the church would continue to financially support the orphanage. Yet no matter how much the church hates it, Father Sergio will never be that again. His fans and parishioners call him Padre Tormenta. If you enjoyed my video on the priest that bent the rules for the better, then please leave a like, comment, share, and subscribe. Your engagement is a tribute to the algorithm gods. And until next time, see you beautiful bastards in the next video.
Yoo-hoo! I'll make you famous.